Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the richest man in Babylon's fifth cure for a small purse. We're going to talk about buying a house. This is just a sort of an illustration. Most of you have heard that buying a house in real estate is probably a pretty good investment. This just kind of shows you this has been true for thousands of years. Not hundreds, but thousands of years. Real estate has almost always been a good deal. Now, in this module, we're just going to talk about buying a house. This is sort of the house to live in. Not, we're not flipping houses or apartment buildings, or we'll do some work with the rest of the real estate market here in a minute, or in a future module rather. And this is just going to be talking about buying a house. In addition to the financial benefits of buying a house, there's a lot of psychic value in owning a house. This has historically always been part of the American dream, something that when it just feels good to own something. This is part of America. So we're going to, for the time being, leave the psychic value away, but I just wanted you to be aware of it. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the advantages of buying a house. One is, and now some of this stuff is different than it was in Babylon thousands of years ago. But like I said, we're trying to bring this into the present. So we will talk in terms of what are some of the benefits, financial. One is you get to use leverage to buy. Instead of paying 100% cash for your house, you can actually borrow money for the house. You only need a small down payment, usually less than 20%, and then you borrow the rest. And that allows you to get into a house for a surprisingly small amount of money, even compared to renting, which I'll illustrate here shortly. Over time, then, you get to pay down the debt until at the end of 15, 20, 25, 30 years, you're typically going to actually own the house free and clear. And this is a big deal because if you can own your house free and clear before you retire, that makes retirement planning much easier. And I'll also be illustrating that here shortly. Generally, with very few exceptions, owning a house is probably better than renting from both the psychic benefits, but also the financial, which I will illustrate here shortly. Okay, here's a little retirement planning example. If we assume you had a $1,500 monthly mortgage, if you had that paid off prior to retirement, the impact, because of the opportunity cost of no longer needing to pay that mortgage, it effectively adds $18,000 to your retirement income. So this is the old Ben Franklin, penny saved is a penny earned. Because if you have that $1,500 a month and it's not going to the bank for a house payment, that means you can be spending it on fun and clothes and travel and all the other things you wanted to do when you retire. So the minute you get your house, for a lot of people, the day they start seriously thinking about retiring is the day they have their house paid for. Up until then, they keep thinking, well, it's going to be when I'm 65 years old or 70 or something like that. But if you had your house paid for when you were 45 or 50, it could change significantly how you would plan for when and how your financial world would be structured if you did retire. So on an even bigger scale, what would you have to accumulate in terms of cash in order to pay off or generate $18,000? Well, you would have to accumulate $900,000, almost $1 million, to pay off that, to be the equivalent of that mortgage amount of $18,000. That assumes a 2% investment rate of return. So you'd have to have $900,000. If you want to do the math, you do 900,000 divided by 0.02 or multiplied by 0.02 rather. to generate $18,000. That's a lot. That's a remarkable amount of money. So paying off your house is really a big investment thing for your entire financial plan. Now, another example. If you are a renter, I always run this example with my students. If you assume they were renting for $800 a month, as most people are aware, renting is generally not tax deductible. So that $800 you're paying out of your gross income, and you don't get any tax break. If that were a house payment, generally you're getting a tax break because the interest, which is the bulk of your payment, is going to be tax deductible. If we were to assume, just for fun purposes here, a tax rate of 30%, you could have a house payment of $1,143 a month. And you can see the math below that. I'm not going to run through that now. But you could have a house payment of $1,143 a month. Now, and we take it one step, working backwards, that works out to a house payment or a value of a house of $239,000. $239,000 you could borrow and have an $1,143 monthly payment, assuming a 30-year mortgage. Now, I didn't factor in the down payment, not doing property taxes. Like I said, again, this is not a real estate course here, but it translates to a pretty nice house. Now, depending on what area of the country you live. But a house like that is going to be certainly nicer than an apartment. So lifestyle-wise, you're going to be much better off. Now, here's the other financial part. If you assume 4% appreciation, which is about average for the country, some areas more, some areas a little less, but average is 4, 5, 6%. That works out at 4% to almost $10,000, $9,576 on the value of that house. So if you were a renter, what happens when you have inflation or appreciation is your rent goes up. So if you had an $800 a month rent, your rent goes up by $32. So every year you're getting further in the hole if you're renting. Whereas if you own the house, your wealth is increasing by almost $10,000 a year. So again, another pure financial benefit of buying a house, which is, again, what the richest man in Babylon was talking about without actually doing all the number crunching. Okay, some action plans. Now, this should hopefully motivate you to start thinking about buying a house. Now, there's lots of different situations and where you are in your current lifestyle. So if you are renting right now, as I just illustrated, you should probably be working on developing a plan to buy a house. So where are you going to get the down payment? How are you going to shop? All that sort of thing. Who can help you? Well, a real estate agent. Or possibly even a financial planner, depending on their background, can show you what it would take for you to be able to buy a house. Now, where do you get the education to do that? If you don't want to depend on someone else, my goodness, there are literally thousands of books on how to do real estate. And a subset of that is how to buy a single family house. There's lots of education, lots of training on how to do this. So try and get a little bit of education on your own so that you can better deal with the real estate agent and financial planner, or follow me some more. And along the way, I've got lots of material on real estate and buying houses and all that sort of thing. Now, the pure investment stuff we're going to do in an upcoming module. But right now, this is just buying a house, which is what the richest man in Babylon says would be a good deal. Now, if you're not a renter, if you're currently an owner, you can still follow up a little bit on this idea of owning a house. Well, maybe you're not in the house you want to be in forever. Maybe where you're living is not your dream house. Well, if not, figure out what your dream house is and develop a plan to buy your dream house. That would be fun. That would be enjoyable. So you still need a plan. If you are, let's say, not worried about the dream house thing, but you're in an existing house and interest rates have changed a little bit, like they have recently and gone down, maybe you need a plan to refinance your mortgage to lower your payment. That'll help your budget. So if interest rates have gone down, you should develop perhaps a refinance plan. If rates have dropped at least 1% since you took out your loan, it'll probably benefit you to do a refinance. And this would boil down to figure out how much lower your payments are going to be because of the lower interest rate. Then look at what your closing costs to get the new loan would be and divide your payment saving into the closing costs, and that sort of tells you your break even. Normally it's maybe a year and a half to break even. And if you're in a 30-year mortgage, that's a pretty good deal. So you probably want to do it. And finally, if you are not doing a refi, maybe you're perfectly happy, your rate is pretty good. Well, then you want to develop a payoff plan to pay that house off early. Instead of a 30-year payoff, maybe 15. Instead of a 15, maybe 10, whatever it is. And again, that would be how you take this to the next level. Thanks.